Hey, everybody, Dr. Meri Crowley for another program of Now is the Time. I've got an amazing guest in the audience with me today, Dr. Betsy Eads of the Eads Medical Practice. We're going to be talking a number of things that are happening with Robert Kennedy Jr., some of the things that we're seeing with the vaccine schedule with children that he's trying to get rid of, and just a number of really important things that you're going to need to know. But before we do that, I actually take the clean slate protocol every day that the Root Brands and Dr. Christina Rahm have formulated. Let's run that commercial, please.
Hi, my name is Dr. Christina Rahm, and I am a scientist, but before I was a scientist, I was actually a psychologist. I learned a lot about neurotransmission, and then when I became a scientist, I started noticing and researching how people got sad, how people became angry, how they were stressed, how they were anxious. Heavy metals in our environment, environmental stressors, as well as parasites, as well as fungus, all of these things add up to a world and environment that is toxic. You know, when you have heavy metals and nuclear waste in the land, air, and water, it doesn't even leave the stratosphere. In fact, a mother passes these on to her child in the stomach. So we have compounded this over time. That was one of the reasons that I created the Trinity, which was clean slate, to really eradicate things out of the body, restore, to help restore nutrients into the body, and zero in. Zero in was really one of my gifts as a psychologist and a scientist. There were certain ingredients like turmeric curcumin, aloe vera, there were certain things like L-theanine, L-arginine that could really help people. There are a lot of ingredients and I've worked with all of them. But I finally was able to work on a formula that I really think is the best that's out there. It's something that really helps the body because it supports the neurotransmission through natural ingredients. I wanted solutions for all the people that I had seen as a psychologist that had issues. Zero in was definitely my answer to that. I personally take one in the morning, and it's an adaptogenic, so it really adapts to different people, like personalized medicine. I hope you try it. It's something that goes along with the Trinity, or it's something you can take alone, but it is something that can help in numerous areas of your life.
Yeah, and if you go to therootbrands.com/now is the time, you need to actually sign up as an affiliate. It's free, but then you can shop and, basically if you sign up for Root Prime, it's like Amazon Prime. After the first month, you get free shipping. And the Trinity Pack has the clean slate, which actually takes a zeolite formulation, but it also puts in the trace minerals we need. Some of the zeolites just take it all out, and but that you need the good trace minerals, and then the restore, which helps restore gut and the nutrients you need, as well as the zero in, which helps the dopamine levels. I ordered the Trinity Pack initially, and I get the clean slate every month on the Root Prime. So anyway, the rootbrands.com/now is the time. Sign up with your own free link, and then you can share that with others as well. So anyway, it's good to have you on, Betsy. Good to see you.
Thank you, Meri. Great to see you again.
Yeah, and you've just been such a blessing. I mean, you've been such a great friend and a blessing because you've been one of those doctors that has really been doing everything to help people and really didn't monetize, not making any money on a lot of the things that you've done. I know you really helped my sister, who really had a really bad situation going on. And, she really helped my sister, and now she's much better. But, let's talk a little bit about, a lot of this weird fog that's been going on around some of these different cities. I know that was happening in Minneapolis, and
Right.
that's where my sister lives. So,
well,
what was that?
I'm here in Florida, and I actually often take pictures of the bioengineering. They changed it from chemtrails to bioengineering trails. But I can tell you this about the chemtrails. They're all over the country. We have some very smart doctors from all over the country who have collected samples. We've collected samples here in Florida. Samples have gone to Mike Adams for analysis. They've gone to different labs for analysis. And I can confirm that some of the things they're seeing in the chemtrails are obviously heavy metals, such as aluminum. They're seeing parasites, and they're seeing a bacteria, a very common bacteria for urinary tract infections called Serratia. So we're seeing some very odd, like spider web-like material recently here in the chemtrails in Florida, and they're out for analysis as well. So what does this mean to the average person? Well, it means, look, you know, people are getting sick from these chemtrails. So pay attention. Normally they spray, and about 24 to 48 hours later, the effect of the chemtrail takes place. And it could be something as simple as tinnitus, ringing in the ears, headache, runny nose, allergy-like symptoms, dry cough, coughing, rash. But it's really affecting a lot of people around the country. And unfortunately, we've got the bad guys that still have that technology. And there are many states passing legislation, including here in Florida. It's on the docket to end chemtrailing or bioengineering chemtrails.
Who is doing the chemtrails? Who's behind the chemtrails? Do you know?
No, we don't. I mean, obviously, there are patents out there, government patents, for the process of mixing and distributing some of the material. But we've even had the next state over to from us in Georgia. We actually had some private citizens actually track the planes, wait for them to land, and then go and video record and basically ask them who's paying them. So, you know, Meri, if you really want to know, you have to follow the money and follow the patents. And I believe that these are old government patents and old government programs. And just like, you know, the GMOs are being funded by dirty money, whether it's USAID, where's that money coming from? Follow the money, and then we'll figure out who's paying for this in certain states. But it's got to stop. People are getting sick.
Well, I mean, ever since COVID came out, I know the beginning of your history that we talked a little bit about before the show today. And I remember when COVID first came out, it was like 2019 of December. I had a friend of mine at a destination wedding in Italy, and they were there, I think, in November. And there was a Chinese couple that was very sick on one of the, I think they were on some type of tour, and this woman was coughing and everything else. And when they came back, they got a really bad, it was, you know, really bad, the lungs. It was COVID, really, what it was. So it was a bioweapon. And God spoke to me and he said, COVID-19 is Christ overcoming victory in disease, Psalm 19. I mean, in Christ, we have to know we can overcome, but it is a serious situation, and it was a demonic. I mean, it was satanic. It was literally a spiritual warfare we were battling. So why don't you share briefly kind of what happened with you, like how you got into this fight?
Well, you know, simply, you know, God woke me up. I was standing in the shower one day. This is a true story. And God just downloaded this information. He said, you know, Betsy, go to SARS-CoV-1, go to the avian flu treatments, pull the papers, see how they treated it. And I quickly realized that hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, and zinc, along with a macrolide antibiotic, a very cheap antibiotic called Zithromax, was the consensus treatment for SARS-CoV-1, as well as a lot of these viruses. So I got tipped off from my good friend Karen Kingston that's, you know, GIs were coming back from the games in October in China with flu-like symptoms. And, you know, I just prepared. And it was all God downloads telling me what to do. I was definitely anointed by God to get ready. I went to my hospital. I said, look, I want to be using hydroxychloroquine, vitamin D, zinc, Zithromax. I want to be prepared. I went to my nursing homes. I went to my hospice. And of course, I did home health and telehealth. So I was prepared. I had all my pharmacies stock up. I made sure I had a good compounding pharmacy on hand in case I needed to use the ivermectin, because there were some good data and good information out there of ivermectin as an anti-parasitic, antiviral, anti-malarial drug. Of course, it won the Nobel Prize in medicine. So I stocked up and was ready and armed. I had the full armor of God on, and I was ready for this. And then I stepped into a situation where I was seeing that hospitals and clinics were not treating people appropriately. And people were going into the hospital and they were actually being harmed. They were being killed. They were sedated. They were tested. They were put on ventilators. They were being put on remdesivir, which killed over 53% of the people in the remdesivir Ebola study. And I quickly figured out that I needed to stand up and use my voice. And I got connected with John DeLemme, who had a White House press pass and was this conference there at my first COVID. Really how I got into the truther movement. From there, I lost a job for not taking a shot. I got censored. I got kicked off Facebook, X, which used to be Twitter, got sanctioned, had all kinds of, hit pieces written about me. But it didn't matter to me because I was never afraid. This was anointing by God. Those of us who were frontline doctors who stepped out and got out of line and spoke up, we're out there and we're treating people that are vaccine injured or shed upon, or they have turbo cancers from the shot. But that's my story. And, I'm still speaking out. I'm still treating people. I've treated thousands of people for COVID, for vaccine injury. There's no long COVID. It's all vaccine injury or shedding injury. And there's plenty of information out there. I know it's a controversial subject because, look, quite frankly, COVID was a bioweapon. We proved it with Karen Kingston's good work at uncovering the patents. We know that the COVID molecule was an AI-generated molecule. It was all made up by an AI computer. And we know what they really wanted to do, which was an evil demonic agenda by the World Health Organization and funded by the Gates Foundation and Soros, was to put out these bioweapons, these shots, these gene editing killer shots. And that was their agenda. We knew it. And I was going to be out there on the front line telling people not to take them. And then being there for the fallout. And I've been there for the fallout ever since, treating vaccine injured patients.
Well, I know I've interviewed a lot of the frontline doctors, like, I've interviewed Dr. Simone Gold and, Dr. Zelenko, God bless Dr. Zelenko. He's passed away, but, he was one of the ones in New York that when Cuomo outlawed the hydroxychloroquine, he came up with the Zelenko, the Z-Stack, and literally saved, I believe, thousands of lives. But there was a lot that died in New York. What happened? Explain what happened in New York. I mean, how many do you think died in these nursing homes?
Oh, thousands of patients. Cuomo was instrumentally, which is crimes against humanity. What he did was he took COVID positive symptomatic patients and he placed them in nursing homes with unvaccinated, patients who had no symptoms. And they ended up killing not just those patients, but other patients and staff in nursing home. And that man needs to be brought in front of a Nuremberg trial because that was crimes against humanity. But there was a lot of things that happened in New York. New York was pushing hospitalization, ventilation, sedation, and remdesivir. And New York lost within a high percentage, 90% of their cases that went to ventilator died from, and just improper treatment of COVID in general. I mean, most of these cases, if you really dig down and look at these cases, they died from complications of a simple to treat viral infection. And those complications were not recognizing and treating the secondary pneumonia, which is very common when you have a viral infection. But what they did was they missed the pneumonias. They didn't use broad spectrum antibiotics. They sedated patients. They didn't use budesonide and dexamethasone to decrease the inflammation. Instead, what did they end up doing? They used remdesivir. It killed 53% of all of the patients in the Ebola study. And that was Ebola. Fauci went and picked a medicine that the safety committee had ranked at the bottom of the list. Hydroxychloroquine, interferon, ivermectin was up at the top with 87% effectiveness for treatment for COVID. We knew it. We all knew it in the community. Even the NIH own website had on it that ivermectin was superior to remdesivir. They then quickly, when all of us printed it out, they took that website down because some of us were very smart and were using hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and showing the pharmacists in the hospital and outside the hospital that these are the drugs the safety committee picked. Here's the website. So, what happened in New York was really just malpractice. Those patients were treated the wrong way and they were killed. And the hospitals were incentivized, $40,000, $50,000, $58,000. Once that patient got tested, they got a bonus. Once that patient got put on a ventilator, they got a bonus. Once that patient was coded as a death by COVID, they got another bonus. And that hospital could have made, here in Medicare, it was over $100,000 per COVID case for Medicare reimbursement here in Florida. Now, every state was a little bit higher, and New York was much higher. But that's what happened in New York. They weren't recognizing and treating what the actual disorder, bacteria, pneumonia, sepsis that was in front of them.
Well, I interviewed a gal, Nurse Erin. I think she'd been a whistleblower in the hospitals in New York. A lot of these nurses were being paid an exorbitant amount of money to come up. They were bringing in nurses from all over the country. And then she said that they were even taking in like the homeless off the streets and drug addicts and pretty much bringing them in and killing them. If you can believe that, that's what she said they were doing. And she was the whistleblower that was actually on Tucker Carlson, what they were doing. So it's insane. The thing is that, Dr. Betsy, people don't believe there's people this evil. Even with what I'm doing with the sex trafficking films and things, they go, oh, no, people aren't like that. Well, you understand you're dealing with a satanic agenda. It's demonic. And it makes sense if you look at it that way. But if you just think of normal people, yes, most people don't think they're like that because you're not like that. But that doesn't mean other people aren't like that. Correct. And so that's where they've got us, when you don't believe there's people that can do this kind of stuff. So now, Dr. Betsy, there's a lot of people that have lost loved ones. I know so many people that have died that, I have not taken them out of my phone because they're still part of me. And it's very sad. I mean, people that were in, the hospitals that they couldn't go see them. They couldn't even say goodbye to them. They were literally like in a concentration camp.
They were in a concentration camp. And the patient bill of rights was taken out of you get a folder when you check in. Patient bill of rights was removed from those folders. It was removed from the postings on the floors at my hospitals. And in the patient bill of rights, there are 15 major points of what your right under the laws that were developed in 1974, 1975 by not just the American Medical Association and physicians, but the American Hospital Association. These were rights that were based on the Bill of Rights, and then they renamed it the Patient Bill of Rights. They would violate almost every single patient bill of right, which is your right to have someone come in and speak for you, visit with you, and have a voice for you. You know, your medical power of attorney, your power of attorney, your next of kin. And that would, all of that language was denied. And people were being made to sign these electronic consents that said, basically, we can intubate you against your will, meaning put a breathing tube on you against your will, whether you want it or not, whether you have a signed do not resuscitate or not. And, oh, by the way, before you leave the hospital, we can give you a COVID vaccine against your will. So there was a lot of things that were being done that were illegal, that were against the Patient Bill of Rights, and that disallowed families to come in to help make those decisions. In addition, good doctors like myself who are on staff, who are trying to walk in appropriate medicines like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, we were barred from bringing those medicines in because remdesivir was the preferred medicine on this COVID protocol. So, you know, years ago, Obama legalized propaganda against Americans. Well, basically, that was in full force during COVID. And the propaganda.
Yeah, explain that bill. Some people might not understand that bill.
Yeah.
When was that? What was the year that he legalized it? Do you
Oh
remember?
my gosh, it was in his first term that he signed a bill to basically legalize propaganda to be used against American citizens. Well, this is what basically they did with COVID. They weaponized our mainstream media against us. You know, they basically went out and did a hit piece on hydroxychloroquine, said, oh, it was going to cause heart arrhythmias and heart disease, and you shouldn't use it. Then they went out and demonized ivermectin, called it horse paste. That was a propaganda campaign against the appropriate treatment that was saving lives. Then they went out and big pharma, whether it's the makers of remdesivir or Pfizer, Moderna, the makers of the COVID shots that they were pushing out as safe and effective, and we know they were never safe and effective. It all became this money-making propaganda arm, and the hospital was all part of that because they were financially gaining money on these cases. And that's why they had time to do all their TikTok videos and cancel all their surgeries, because they knew that money was coming in. They were being incentivized even to give staff the COVID shots. So the money was made. The money was being made at the hospital hand over fist during COVID. And the doctors that didn't fall lockstep in line with the COVID treatment protocols, we all got out. You know, we all said, I don't want any part of this. I want to honor my oath, and I'll find a different way to treat people.
Well, I know you know who Scott Shera is, his daughter, Grace. I was actually at that. There was, you know, an event in front of the hospital that this hospital pretty much put his daughter, who is special needs, you know, high functioning Down syndrome. You know, she went in, her oxygen levels were low. She had COVID, and he knows better now, but he was in the hospital with her, and then he ended up getting COVID, and they kicked him out, and the daughter came in, their daughter, and was in the room with Grace. And then she just wanted to take a shower, and they said, well, you have to go home to do that. By the time she went home and came back, they had put her on a double dose of lorazepam and morphine, and she was dying. And then there was a DNR, a do not resuscitate, on her chart, which they never said that. So they pretty much killed his daughter, Grace, who was like his little buddy, his best friend, you know, him. She was just an amazing Grace, they called her. So they're suing the hospital, and we had an event in front of the hospital. Dr. Brian Artis was supposed to have been there. But, you know, I had just interviewed in my hotel room, Dr. Zelenko and Dr. Richard Bartlett in that hotel room. So we were all standing up all over the country, people standing up. And I think this is just kind of everyone in remembrance, because I
Right.
just got done interviewing Pastor Archer Pulowski, and he's that Canadian pastor that has stood up and been thrown in prison and had so many challenges. He's flying down to a medical conference, with Dr. McCullough and a number of other people, Charlie Kirk and different ones in Arizona. But he says that they look at him as a spiritual doctor because he stood and paid the price. But the reason I bring this up is because he said people have to realize we cannot stop fighting. We're at the
No.
beginning of this war. And a lot of people think, well, Trump's in, everything's good. We can just relax now.
No, listen, all of us that are anointed by God, that have stood up, all of the frontline doctors, all of the doctors, we need to keep pushing. We need to keep the narrative out front, to get rid of not just what I call the medical mafia, the hospitals, the white coat medical mafia is my term for them. But to get rid of the mRNA shots. And remember, mRNA is in a lot of the other shots. It's in the hepatitis. And what does a newborn baby get in the hospital? Their first shot is a hepatitis shot, which is just absurd. It's in the flu. It's in the RSV. It's in the COVID shots. And all of these shots are on the children's schedule as well as the adult schedule. And we need to keep our voices out front. We need more doctors, independent doctors, to stand up and honor their oath and to recognize that people now are having chronic disease, chronic illness, and sudden deaths still from these COVID shots. They need to speak up. They need to start listening to their patients and recognizing that these are not long COVID injuries. These are vaccine injuries. And we need to recognize it. There are some great studies out. Pierre Corey just came out with a 1-year study in his practice of 1,500 patients that he's been treating for COVID vaccine injuries. And the symptoms vary across the board. That he's seeing. He's seeing neurological disorders like Guillain-Barré. He's seeing blood clots and pulmonary embolism and autoimmune disorders, chronic rashes. It's a lot of things. I can read a whole list of what he reported on. Headache, flu-like symptoms, nosebleeds, fatigue, rashes, tinnitus, sinus, shingles, palpitations, heart disease, myocarditis.
Well, isn't there a lot of also the
disorders.
turbo cancers?
And turbo cancers. And, Ryan Cole just posted again today some findings from biopsies that he's looking at, autopsies he's looking at. There's spike protein in every single cancer specimen. And what is in the shots? SV40. SV40 is an adjuvant that causes cancer, specifically lymphoma cancer, thyroid cancer, breast cancers. SV40 was also mentioned in the newly released 80,000 CIA documents. Isn't that interesting? Those go all the way back to the 60s. So we know that DARPA, and some of the dark research was using SV40 to inject in mice to test out their chemotherapies. But anyway, turbo cancers are on the rise, and we're seeing stage 4 cancers at diagnosis. We're seeing very difficult to treat cancers. By the way, almost all of those patients have taken 1, 2, or 3 COVID shots. So,
this can be a little troubling to many people, that have been listening or watching. And, a lot of people think, well, we just want to push past this now. But, there is hope. First of all, with Christ, we've overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. Remember Jesus on the cross as we come up to the Passover season and the resurrection day. I don't like to call it Easter because it's resurrection day. And Jesus on the cross said, "It is finished." So
Right.
every single disease that Jesus took on that cross, I believe that God is going to do some great miracles in the future, and we are seeing that. But we actually are now seeing different people like that are being put in the cabinet that are doing major things to turn around and draining the swamp, including RFK Jr. Let's
Right.
go into a little some of the things that he's doing, Dr. Betsy.
Well, before we did, I just want to remind everybody, fear not is mentioned 365 times in the Bible. And there is no reason to fear. We have treatment out there. We'll talk about that at the end. But I, for one, was very happy when RFK got confirmed, because I knew he was going to do some good things. And remember, it's only been 30 some days since he's been in office. So, everybody just needs to have some patience. But some of the things that he is going to work on is he is going to be looking at the childhood vaccine schedule, and he is going to be doing some really good double-blind good studies on the vaccines. And based on those studies, he will get rid of some of those vaccines that are doing harm. And he's going to release some of the previous work that was hidden. So some of that disclosure will be coming. But some of the things he's going to do, childhood vaccine schedule, he's going to work on that. Banning certain EMF radiation that is causing cancer and chronic disease. Getting rid of glyphosate in our food supply and other pesticides. Getting rid of ultra processed foods. We have approved over 2,000 processed items or adjuvant ingredients in our food that are banned over in Europe. Over in Europe, they have approximately, depending on what country, 100 to 300 ingredients. So our food supply here in America is banned in Europe because we have food coloring and pesticides and things that are banned in other countries. So he's going to work on cleaning up processed foods. Obviously, artificial food dyes, he's already working on banning those. SSRIs are antidepressant group that's been shown in studies to cause suicidal ideation. So he's going to work to ban those. Other psychiatric drugs. PFOAs are plastics and microplastics that we're getting exposed to in waters. Fluoride here in Florida, we have almost half of the counties here in Florida have banned fluoride in the water. They're now looking at heavy metals and aluminum. So, he has a daunting job to do, but we just need to be patient that we're moving in the right direction to clean up not just our air, but our soil, our food, our water, and our pharmaceuticals. He's also pushing along with Trump to bring back big pharma ingredients here to be processed, made in America. Approximately 80% of our ingredients are imported from other countries and mostly China. So we're going to bring back manufacturing of pharmaceuticals here in America. And there's a push. Everybody needs to realize it's not just getting off of pharmaceuticals. It's eating organic. It's eating healthy. It's drinking good, clean, structured water or hydrogen water or, clean water or filtering your water. But it's an everyday process to get healthy. And so I'm, 100% behind MAHA and the MAHA movement.
Well, and a lot of people might think, well, I didn't take the shot. I didn't take the jab. But then the shedding is a real thing. Just like, the chemtrails in the air, in the food, in the water.
Yeah.
They're trying to literally take out the population, just like with the Georgia Guidestones,
Right.
the 10 things it said on there, which thank God it came down July 6, 2022. I was actually in Georgia. Maria Zach had a conference, Nations in Action. And I was speaking there on Sunday morning and showing my film in the afternoon, and we all turned to the Guidestones and we commanded them to come down, and 3 days later they did. Now, whether or not our prayer had anything to do with that or not, they still came down. And, the 10 different things, kind of like the 10 commandments, they had the number one thing is that the world's population would not be more than 500 million in perpetuity, meaning it
True.
wouldn't ever get bigger than 500 million. And so that means like there's 8 billion people on the planet. That means over 7.5 billion people would have to die. So you're dealing with some very evil people that really, like Klaus Schwab says, you'll own nothing and be happy. And so while they own everything.
Right.
So you're dealing with some lunatics. So the shedding, explain what the shedding is and how we can, help get past what the shedding is and help get our bodies in order.
Well, it's a touchy, controversial subject, but I am going to say this. The COVID shots were put out to do harm and kill people. And we know the agenda. I don't need to repeat the Hillary Clinton's agenda, 8 years in office, FEMA camps. So the COVID shots also became very divisive. They divided the community between those who took the shot and the unvaccinated. And the unvaccinated were the ones that were accused of causing asymptomatic infections, right, in the vaccinated. So it's a controversial subject because now we're finding out that the spike protein stays in the body. This mRNA mechanism is continually making spike protein and stays in the body, according to a Johns Hopkins study that was recently released, over 700 days. We know through Ryan Cole and Ern Bernhardt and some of the pathologists around the world, they're showing that the spike protein is in every organ system and it's there well past 2 years. Well, I'm going to tell you that the spike protein is constantly being made. You cannot shut off that mRNA mechanism. And shedding is real. We now have thousands of studies, retrospective studies, showing that the spike protein can be shed through sexual contact, through sharing of bodily fluids, through the breath, through spit, through the skin, within even just a 6-foot radius. Shedding occurs, and that shedding is the movement of the spike protein to another person. And most of the people that are unvaccinated, that are around people who are double shot and boosted, they immediately know and feel unwell immediately. And there's a lot of different data out there, but I think the biggest studies are the studies on that we first saw when we first recognized the spike was shedding, which is menstrual irregularities. 34% had heavy bleeding when they were around somebody that took the shots. 28% had a higher risk of the menstrual cycle starting 7 days early. 26% had higher amount of time of bleeding. So their bleeding never stopped after their cycle. And then there were just mild shedding things observed, like headaches and weakness and flu-like symptoms and rashes, runny nose, upper respiratory like symptoms. But then there were some severe shedding things noted, like myocarditis, heart attacks, blood clots in the legs, pulmonary emboli, strokes, heart attacks. So, there's been a lot of studies put out there on shedding, and shedding is a real thing. And so what I always tell people is it doesn't matter whether you took a COVID shot or not, you should still protect yourself. And there are some easy things to do to protect yourself. One is eat organic, eat healthy. Two is, as I said, filter your water and drink good structured water or hydrogen water. But there are some proven treatments to sweep out that spike protein and some of the other things in the shot. And this is my protocol. This is what I recommend. I recommend ivermectin. If you're vaccinated with the COVID shots, you should be taking ivermectin every day. But if you're not, 2 or 3 days a week is enough. Ivermectin, bromelain, nattokinase, methylene blue, chlorine dioxide, zeolite, which you can get from the Roots brand, Clean Slate, zeolite, And then, of course, no sugar, low sugar, fasting, intermittent fasting, which you're doing right now. Organic meats and vegetables, block all EMF. So whether you get EMF blocking into your home or getting the scalar stickers that block the EMF on the back of your phone, on the back of your iPad, laptop, smart TV, never wearing Bluetooth headphones because that's direct radiation to your brain, never holding the phone up to your ear, that's direct radiation, cleaning up the dirty radiation coming into your home. So get rid of your smart meter and get a traditional meter. I did that this past year myself. But there are things that people need to be doing to protect themselves, not just from the COVID shots, but also from the shedding. And, you know, this is going to be ongoing until we come out with appropriate treatments, whether that's frequency therapy, med bed therapy, you know, whatever cures are on the horizon. If you are COVID shot injured and you have a turbo cancer, you know, look into Joe Tippin's protocol, look into Dr. Mackis' protocol. There are some great research and protocol regarding ivermectin, fenbendazole, and Joe Tippin's is a great place to start.
Where do they find the Joe Tippin's protocol?
Joe Tippin's has a Telegram site. So if you just type in Joe Tippin's protocol, it'll take you right to his Telegram. You can go
and
to
Tippin's is spelled Tippins.
Correct. And I have all of Joe Tippin's information on my Telegram site, which is Dr._Betsy, which is also my True Social, Dr._Betsy. My website is healinghumanity worldwide.com. And that website has my protocols on there. It has a way to contact me. It also has a link to our store that has all organic products and products that I use for not just Joe Tippin's protocol, but detox as well.
Wow. Well, you know, this is, you know, God had spoken to me that we're going to see the greatest move of God the world has ever seen. And he basically told me it's going to be the greatest show on earth. But we have to eradicate the rats. These people have been around a long time. They're, you know, the whole Rockefeller. Explain, you know, a lot of people probably already know this as we close, but why don't you explain what happened with the Rockefellers and Big Pharma and the petroleum products and, you know, their, you know, with the quacks, you know, their narrative that they put out there about natural, holistic doctors and chiropractors. Right. Just give a little overview of that.
I'll just give a simple overview. First of all, the father of Big Pharma and modern medicine is Rockefeller. They basically bankrolled the AMA. They bankrolled the British to develop all of the scientific literature, all the magazines, all the studies. They bankrolled all of it. They also are the inventor of pharmaceuticals because way back then they were all petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. They also bankrolled the medical schools and the medical curriculum. And so a lot of the holistic disciplines, whether they were osteopathic medicine or holistic doctors or Dr. Reif coming out with frequency therapy or people coming out with herbal hemp or, you know, THC cures for cancers and non-traditional cures for cancer, they were all basically censored, and some of them even killed and harmed by this Rockefeller system. So they really are an evil entity of modern medicine. And
even like the American Medical Association, the American Cancer Society, those are all
they've all been infiltrated. They've been bankrolled by Rockefeller. Look, it's been 40 years of cancer research, and the American Cancer Society has not come up with one cure for cancer. Instead, they push out synthetic treatments such as chemotherapy that actually kills cells and kills people and doesn't treat the underlying cause of cancer, which is environmental pesticides, organophosphates, benzenes, glyphosate, and parasites. Parasites are probably one of the biggest causes of cancer that is completely unrecognized. You know, that's why ivermectin and fenbendazole are so important. Other countries know this. In Senegal, they give everybody ivermectin once a year to get rid of the parasites so they don't get cancer. They don't get chronic disease. They don't get illness.
Well, I know even Mel Gibson, I think, was on Joe Rogan or something and was saying 4 of his friends who had stage 4 cancer it all took the methylene blue, or whatever, and they all were healed. Where do you get that at?
There's lots of sites to get methylene blue online. And methylene blue, let me just explain what it does for everybody. Methylene blue used to be used as in oncology as a cancer treatment 20, 30 years ago. And what it does is it gets inside the cell and it causes every cell in your body to produce ATP. Well, ATP in a cell produces oxygen for the body. So if you're increasing the amount of ATP in a cell and you're healing the cell, and then that ATP is producing the oxygen that the body needs to heal, and cancer hates oxygen, what do you think methylene blue does? It heals cancer. It heals chronic disease. And oh, by the way, it'll go up through the blood-brain barrier and it'll heal dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Do you think the Rockefeller big pharma medicine wanted people to know that methylene blue and ivermectin and fenbendazole and mebendazole and frequency therapy were good treatments for cancer? No. Do you think that the Rockefeller big pharma globalist agenda wanted people to know that if they treat their parasites, they're not going to get chronically ill and get autoimmune disease and cancer? No. Did you know that Ronald Rife, when he came out with his Rife machine, the frequency that he found that treated cancer the best, oh, by the way, also was the parasite frequency to kill parasites in the body? So look, there's been a propaganda MK Ultra, push, for years. The scientific journals have been fraud for years. They've been suppressing studies and putting studies behind firewalls at these major universities that could have helped some of us good doctors, really heal patients. And this is why I speak out. This is what it's all about. Us frontline doctors are out here using these treatments because they're tried and true. And we now have treated thousands of patients with good results with these treatments. So,
and a lot of these doctors, Dr. Betsy, they're good people. They've been going to medical school and they were never taught this stuff.
Oh my gosh. And this is one of my pet peeves. We don't get taught adequate nutrition in medical school. We don't even get taught any really good vaccine classes. I mean, we basically get handed the package insert and say, you're on your own, right? We don't get the studies and the ingredients. Just like during COVID, when you went into the pharmacy, I went into many pharmacies and asked for the package insert. It was blank for the COVID shots. But you don't get adequate virology. You don't get anything on parasitology in med school. You don't get anything on nutrition in med school. They teach what the propaganda pays for. They teach the protocols that big pharma tells them to teach, right? And it's fraud. Now, luckily, I'm an osteopathic physician. So when I went to osteopathic medical school, our medical school taught differently than the allopathic schools. I got manipulation. I got acupuncture. I got physical exam. I got taught a lot differently how to touch the patient, how important physical exam was, how important the nervous system from head to toe was connected, and how important healing disease in one organ affects another organ. So I was already very much open to using a lot of different healing techniques, modalities, herbal medicine in my practice. But, most Rockefeller funded medical schools don't teach those things. So, yeah, we're going to have a complete overhaul of our medical education system here in America. We're going to have to, have classes and re-education of doctors in using herbs right, vaccines right, pharmaceuticals correctly, and pretty much everything that we need to heal the body God put on earth, right? He put herbs,
Yes.
put hemp, he put CBD, he put THC, everything that he put on this earth, crystals and frequency, can heal the body. We just have to eat right, clean up our air, clean up our water, clean up our pharmaceuticals, get rid of harmful vaccines. And, I think RFK is moving us that way. So I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
Well, Dr. Betsy, I'm so grateful, that you came on. I know you've helped my family. You've helped me. You're just a blessing. Where can people, once again, what's your website?
It's healingHumanityWorldwide.com. My Telegram is Dr._Betsy. On X, which I post a lot of medical, it's Eads_Elizabeth, and you'll see Dr. Eads and my picture pop up. Very active on X. And, people can contact me through my website.
Well, we thank you for coming on and thank you for watching. Now is the time. Please share this. Please follow or subscribe. I know I've been attacked on a number of things about trying to suppress and shadow ban a number of other things. But if we, the best way of advertising is really word of mouth. So if you will share this with 5 people, and there's a lot of good things in here of how we can help each other. And prayer. I'm in the ministry as well. And when you pray, Jesus prayed for the sick and they were recovered. When you lay hands on the sick, it says they will recover. So God is bringing a worldwide healing movement where people are waking up. They're coming into the kingdom. They're getting saved and delivered and healed. And Jesus healed all of them that were sick and diseased, and all means all. And that's all means. So never forget that, the true healer is Jesus, and he still heals today. So if you could go to my website, you can follow me. You can actually sign up for my newsletter and actually go in and see some of my other shows. But, I have a new YouTube channel too. Actually, they took me down so many times that please go to my Rumble. Will be on Rumble, Meri Crowley, rumble.com/Meri Crowley, and Meri is MERICROULEY. But on YouTube, I'm just starting to promote this because we just launched. I think I have 58 subscribers. Go to The Meri Show, MERI, The Meri Show. And we're starting to put out stuff that normally you'd get taken down, but we're testing it. We'll put this one up on there, and we'll see. Hopefully it'll stay up. We just put a great interview with David Sorensen of Stop World Control. We talked about a lot of stuff on there that we haven't gotten taken down yet. So we're testing the waters to see what's happening. But I appreciate you, Betsy, Dr. Betsy, for coming on. Appreciate all of you guys for basically, watching the show and sharing it with as many people as you can. And I'm also under Facebook under Meri Crowley Ministries. You can follow me on there, as well as I am under also Telegram under Meritime, MERITIME. So anyway, God bless you, Dr. Betsy. Thanks for watching. Remember, the best is yet to come. We haven't seen anything yet. The greatest show on earth is here. Just get ready. Heaven is standing. It's time to cheer, because this is our year that we're coming in for. This is the season that we will win. So thanks for watching. God bless. See you soon.
God bless. My pleasure.